base hits are as important as home runs, because if you don't get those base hits, you won't be mentally ready for the home runs when the opportunity presents itself. If this long trade from 455 went to 460 and then rejected, then you've got a lower high. And if it break lows, now you've got a downtrend. So this chart would have looked really different had that happened. Over the months, when my green days turned into green weeks and into green months, and then the P&L started growing, then I was like, okay, maybe I've got something.
Hello, and welcome to the Trader's Journey for Investors Underground. In this episode, I'll speak with a talented trader who grew his $5,000 account into over $2 million over the course of 5 years while maintaining a full-time job. In this episode, we'll discuss how he balances work with trading, how he scaled his account, how he approaches consistency, risk management, and so much more. Investors Underground members might recognize him from the chat as Simple Day Trader. It's my honor to introduce Yash. Hello, Yash. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the show.
Hey, hi, Anthony. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm very interested to speak with you because I think you have such an incredible story and trading journey. So if it's okay, I'd love to start with just simply asking, how did you first learn about the stock market and the world of trading?
Yeah, I think it was back in 2017. So right around when Robinhood launched in the US. And back then, I just thought of it as, investing. So I got into taking like one share of Tesla, Netflix, and I think Domino's Pizza, which when you think of, good companies to hold over. And then slowly I got a little more intrigued about day trading and started looking up YouTube videos around it.
And so when you started, did you think this was something that you would probably begin to do long term over the course of years as investing instead of maybe, get rich quick, or just buy some GameStop, it goes to the moon? Your perspective was more long term. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct. So my perception of trading was that it's, investing. I did not know about day trading and definitely didn't know the potential of it. And I just saw like some videos of YouTube, some channels where people post these, multi-thousand days of P&L. And I thought, okay, if only I can get to that, that's going to be like a dream. So definitely knew that this had potential. But yeah, more so it was of an investing approach.
And so what were some of the first lessons that you learned about the market? Did your first initial trades go as expected, better than expected, or were there some growing pains there?
No, I think there was definitely some hiccups. So one of the early lessons I learned was that there are definitely a lot of ways to make money in the market. So, you've got OTC markets, you've got crypto, you've got stocks, options, futures. So it's more about trial and error. So you need to try different markets and everything has its own mechanism, and then stick to what works. And then once you have that, it's more like you want to focus on some of those strategies and then grow. At the same time, risk management was key. So I obviously started with a very small account. So at the point, account conservation was equally important to just profits,
When did you have your first successful trade? Do you remember that moment when you realized, oh, wow, I did something. I made some money just from clicking some buttons online. Do you still remember what that was like?
Yeah, exactly the way you said it. So I think it was in 2020 when I started trading options. I still remember it was one day about a Tesla trade where with just like a single contract, I was able to make around $1,000 plus profit holding for just like 15-20 minutes. And I was like, okay, wow, this has some potential for sure. And then over the months when my, green days turned into green weeks and into green months, and then the P&L started growing, then I was like, okay, maybe I've got something.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your trading style. So were you trading options from the start, or were you also experimenting with, equities and stocks trading as well? What did that look like at the beginning?
Yeah, so I think I did a bit of everything. So I started with, small caps and longing small caps as a lot of people do those days. And I had like a very small account with one of the brokers. I think it was Shore Trader back then, where you don't have like a PDT, right? And then I slowly moved on to options, trying it out with large caps. But at that time, I didn't know what to look for really. So I was just kind of doing experiments, buying and then getting chopped out eventually. But now it's mostly equities. And yeah, I think I started with options, grew my account, and then slowly, opened another account with the brokers for small caps, and then another account, and then another, and then joined IU, joined these other chat rooms, grew my network through Twitter, and then here we are.
Incredible. And what would you say was one of the biggest lessons that you learned in those early days that helped you grow your account? Because, one of the things that's incredible is you went from 5,000 under PDT to going past PDT. What do you credit that account growing mechanism to?
Yeah, I think I would say it was a little conservative approach, because I knew there is a risk of blowing up, especially with a smaller account, right? So I would kind of preserve my profitable days. So if I'm good in the first 1 hour, 2 hours, that's it, I call it, because the account growth was more important to me than trying to capture every opportunity. So slowly as the account size grew, and then I could open up new brokers, that opened me to more resources and more opportunities, and that's how I was able to, I think, do it slowly. So if you look at my equity curve, you could see that it's a steady uptrend rather than a lot of volatile, blow ups and then come back up. So that's my style personally, and I thought that was a safe approach to take.
That's absolutely right on, because when I look at your equity curve, that's one of the things that I think is extremely noteworthy, is that there's not these big drawdowns, right? Like your equity curve, I think, is one of the smoother ones that I've seen. And it's really interesting to hear that you were very cognizant. That's by design. So I guess the related question is, we could get into this further along as we talk in the episode, but, what were some of the initial maybe policies or rules that you put in place to help you keep the profits and not have these big drawdowns?
Yeah, so I think one of them definitely was having a max loss, and that I think came after having a pretty big losing day. But I think we'll touch up on that a little later. But the overall approach was that I used to have some sort of like profit target, like maybe starting on, it was a few $100s to that grew to maybe like 2,000-3,000, and then it also depends on the market environment, right? Like if the market is very fast and, there are a lot of gappers every day, there are a lot of opportunities, then you are kind of okay to push on that day. But if you look at like 2022 or 23 early, when the market slowed down and it was a lot less unforgiving, meaning that if you took a bad trade, you didn't have the opportunity to make it back. So I was kind of cognizant along the way of all these aspects, and I tried to just kind of lock it in when I have a good day. I used like my broker. I would tell him that just block my buying power. And another thing I did was to conserve the growth. I kind of reset the account. So once I would have like a good string of profits, I would wire out the money so that the money is not at risk, because anything that's in your account is always at risk. Once it's in your bank, then it's more safer.
That's incredible. I think that's a great idea to wire out. And I've heard other successful traders say the same. Remember to pay yourself, because if you don't, then all of that money is at risk. And it's possible to go from over PDT back to under PDT.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. One of the point about PDT was the reason I started with options was it wasn't, there's no PDT in options if it's a cash account. So that's something maybe people know by now or don't know yet. So that might be useful. But with the cash account, the caveat is you get to trade the number, like the amount that your account is. So basically, let's say you have $5,000. So then you can only take options worth $5,000 on that day. So it's not a margin account, right? So you cannot keep on trading. What that also does is you are more selective in the trades that you take, because you're actually just kind of exhausting your chances, because you have limited chances to take, right? So that gave a little bit of more discipline and, forced me to think about what trades I want to put my money to use and versus what to skip.
If you're looking for ways to take your trading to the next level, Investors Underground might be able to help. You'll have access to courses and mentors to learn from, some of the best technology available for scanning stocks and breaking news, and access to the chat rooms where you'll find a vibrant community of focused traders willing to share their trade ideas in real time each day. Members have access to the morning broadcasts where IU moderators share their trade ideas for the day ahead during the pre-market session. Members have access to the midday study sessions with Stan, the midweek study sessions with Sam, webinars, moderator watch lists, and all the other resources that Investors Underground has to offer. Listeners of The Trader's Journey can access exclusive membership deals available at investorsunderground.com/journey. And now, back to our interview with Yash. Were you trading, options the entire time that you were under PDT to when you went above PDT? Or what was that moment like when you went over PDT? How did it feel?
Yes.
What were you trading? Do you remember that?
I think I was trading both, actually. So I had an options account and I had a smaller account with these offshore brokers, right? Like the Shore Trader back then. And the reason I did that was that screen time is equally important for small caps. Like the number of charts that you review, the tape that you watch, the live price action, right? So I would still trade those, but with very small size, like 200 shares, 300 shares maybe. And that was also like a $5,000, $10,000 account that slowly became like, 15,000, 20,000, then 25, 30. And also because PDT is 25, so I actually waited until like I had around 40 to open a brokerage, because if I had just 30 and then I open it and then I have to give it, the leeway is too small. So if I lose like 5,000, I'll be under PDT, right? And so that's how I kind of managed both. So I was still trading small caps. I was in IU. I remember the chat rooms and those runners back in 2020. So that was still valuable. Yeah.
And Yash, it's October of 2024 when we're recording this. So my question is, where are you finding edge in the markets these days? And what does your trading style look like as of October 2024? How would you describe to others where you find edge in the markets?
For this year, I would say it's been like 50-50 for me between large caps and small caps, mainly because large caps have been seeing so many A+ setups, like the semi sector early on, the earnings gaps, and like the Nvidia, the SMCI, ARM, and also like high beta names on like, Tesla. I also trade small caps. So I think my style is mostly like shorting small caps, and these are the usual, day one gappers. I'm also good with reading the tape. So I like to trade the fast moving parabolic squeezes, and I would trade like both sides of it. So if it's front side, I'll try to, trade quick scalps on the long. And then once we have some extension, I'll take a short as well.
Okay, great. So you're trading both long and short. Would you say you're about 50-50% on each, or do you tend to favor one over the other?
I think so. It depends on the bracket. So if it's large caps, I would say 50-50, because they both have good opportunities. But if it's small caps, I would say it's more like 80-20. So it's like 80% is shorting, 20% is long in small caps.
And is there one particular trade that you think exemplifies your trading style, or the setups that you like to look for and trade, that you'd be willing to share with the viewers? Yeah,
for sure. So let me share my screen. This was one of the trades that I took earlier this year. It is in Meta, and this was after the earnings came out.
Yeah, looks like almost like a washout long on the at the opening drive.
Yes, so it's basically an opening drive play, which is one of my favorite setups in large caps. And this was the day where Meta had really good earnings. It was gapping up over all-time highs. I think it was around like a 15% gap. And the idea coming into it was usually there will be some sort of profit taking when there's such a big gap. So I wanted to capitalize on a short, and especially the point where we were opening, right? You can see like we are opening in the middle of this pre-market range. So you have these orange lines are the pre-market high and the pre-market low. And I like to track those for large caps because they usually signal some sort of strength or weakness. And so you can see when it opens, I kind of shorted it, and 463 was this level, which I initially got shaken out a little bit, but then I got right back in, slammed it as 460 failed, and I started taking covers near the pre-market low because I knew that the long term or the medium term trade is a long, because this is a good company with great earnings. They also announced, I think, a big buyback and a first time dividend, so I was definitely bullish on it. And so that's why the first trade is a little bit of a scalp, but it's still a good, almost 5 to 7 points trade. And once we started seeing these buyers, as you can see this wick here near the pre-market low, I flipped long. I sold some into the highs where we had some resistance around 461 and got back in. Once 463 started holding, I added back to full size and then slowly scaled out into 473 near the highs. So yeah.
That's an incredible trade. One of the things I really like about this trade is that you were able to flip your, I'm not even going to call it bias, because you had mentioned that you were kind of thinking about going long as well, but you traded both sides of the move, this initial short and then flip. Is that something that you look to do in some of your trades, is to go, short and then long, or long and then short, sort of play both sides?
Not really, not every time. It depends on the situation. So yeah, for this case, I thought it was valid because we are opening with such a large gap. And then I was telling myself in pre-market, like, I want to get in long only when I see buyers step up. So I don't want to long, let's say, 458 or below 460, because then it goes to 455, 452, and you never know, it could still keep going and break 450 and, just fade all day because it's a bigger gap. But once you have some kind of confirmation here and then the price starts holding above VWAP under the highs, then you can take another kind of leg up. So that's how I kind of managed it. And you can see like the first move went from 453 to 463. And that's why I kind of did a measured move target. So from 463 to like 473. So you got 10 points, 10 points, 10 points, something like that.
What was sort of the signal to you where it would be a good position to buy initially, right? Because you got this period just around 9:30 or so where you get a few minutes of stability. Were you worried at all about maybe this dropping off and going another 5 points? How were you thinking about risk in that position to buy?
Yeah, so once I saw this candle break highs, like around 457, right? At that point, I don't want it to come near the lows. So my risk was like 452. And maybe my average was 456. And you could see this really strong candle of buying, like a big range from 455 to almost 460. And then the price kept holding above it. So you had higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. You had some selling here near the highs. So 463, that's where I sold some. But once it started holding again, you have this confirmation, and now we break the pre-market high, which is 465 here, the orange line. And then we are just off to races because now it's all-time highs, great news. It's got this dip and rip at the open. So yeah, I mean, I still reviewed it and I said, okay, I should have just held on from here all the way to 472, but that's not really realistic. So I thought still it was a good trade where I flipped my bias and was able to capture like 2 legs of longs.
Yeah, it's absolutely a great trade. For the viewers and audience who are thinking, oh, I'll just take this trade, that Yash is showing me, what advice or warnings, caution, would you give them about simply following what you just showed us here?
Yeah, as I said, I mean, you always got a probability of things happening, but you don't know for sure that it's going to happen. Like, for example, if this long trade from 455 went to 460 and then rejected, then you've got a lower high. And if it break lows, now you've got a downtrend. So this chart would have looked really different had that happened. So it's more, I like to trade that way, where I see some confirmation and then I'm able to hold my, size for a longer move up, but just be prepared for all sort of possibilities.
Tremendous. Thank you so much for sharing that, Yash. Another question I had was about Investors Underground, which you mentioned earlier. How are you using Investors Underground on a daily basis in your trading?
I log in every day. I'm not that active on the Traders Lounge, but I look at the broadcast every morning, and I look at Nate's comments, other people's comments as well on what they're watching. I also like the fact that we've got price alerts inbuilt, which I've often used, and I find them more useful than other, like DAS does not have any kind of alerts, which I like. I also like the news chatter that we have, and the tape burst thing. So I found those to be very useful this year, especially.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. There's a number of tremendous tools built into Investors Underground. So you don't even have to be active in the chat to take advantage of the incredible tools that have been built.
Yeah. And also the watch list help. So, the overnight watch list that people put out.
Absolutely. One topic I wanted to discuss as well, Yash, was about sizing, because you did something incredible with taking a $5,000 account into seven figures. So could you talk a little bit about what that scaling and sizing process was like? Because I'm assuming at one point you were trading and are trading multiples of the size that you used to trade and what used to be normal for you. So what was that process like? Were there any hiccups that you encountered with, sizing up and all of that? What's that process been like for you?
Yeah, so I think it was definitely a slow process. As I said, I've been more conservative about growing size. Back then I was probably initially when the options, I used to have like $50, $100 kind of risk on a trade, and I would be happy with $150 or a $200 profit. That slowly grew to like $200, $300. With small caps also same thing. Once I had a bigger account and then slowly multiple accounts, then I started taking 1 to 1.5% of the account value to be like 1R, and at the same time I kept kind of resetting the account, widening out, so that I just grow that size slowly. So I'm not a fully discretionary trader where I say like, okay, it's got to be exactly 1R every time. So that's something which I feel is one of my weakness also. But at the same time, I'm not pushing size too fast too. Just like not 10x the next month, not that way. It's more like 1.25, 1.5, and then slowly over the years it's grown. Obviously, it's not like, I overnight turned the 5K into like seven figures. It took time and it took a good market as well, I would say, because the opportunities were incredible in 2021, especially. So yeah, I'm just grateful that happened. And talking about like, the outsized issues or losses. So I think it was back in Jan of 2021 where I came off a strong year in 2020, and I had my confidence at all-time highs, and there was this mid-cap, I think, biotech stock, two of them actually, and I took a pretty big, brutal, grinding up all day kind of chart, and I was shorting into it, and it was good news. It didn't have dilution. It was a biotech phase 2 or phase 3. And I just didn't see all those red flags. I was just too in my head and stubborn. And that's one of the lessons that market will always give you is, it can humble anybody. So the moment you're overconfident, just be on the watch out. And that day, I think I took like a pretty big 5-figure loss. And that really devastated me because back then I didn't have a max loss on the account. And this was what I was talking about earlier. And I spoke to a couple of my mentors and traders who I found through Twitter, some people who worked in prop firms, and they kind of advised me to start using a max loss, because that's really important for your conservation. Even if you are not wrong and the market just gives you a curveball, you're out of your head and you're like a deer in the headlights in such moments. So you need some protection for your account. So I definitely think like having a max loss is really important. And back then it also helped like kind of having some sort of support and understanding from my wife, like because I used to chat with her every day. So she's also from a finance background. So it helps that she understands the market volatility, like what's possible every day. So it's been good to have her as well as a support, and kudos to her for like tolerating me through the years because it's a journey, as you know, it's like a roller coaster journey of trading.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, shout out to her for, supporting you and understanding that it's not easy for a significant other to understand sort of the world of.
Yeah, especially when we're talking such big numbers in a day, right? Like you just, okay, how did that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Her and all the other trader significant others out there, shout out and much kudos to them. And, maybe you could talk about this real quick, just, how that's been beneficial for you to have that support. What's it been like, in order to be able to quickly move past some of those big losses with someone who is understanding of what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish in the world of trading, versus just telling you, oh, you lost, 5 figures. Clearly it's time to quit.
Yeah.
How important is it to have that support?
Yeah. I think that's very important, because if you have a big loss, you're mentally in a very bad state, because it shatters your confidence. However wins you've done before, it doesn't matter, because you start questioning, okay, can you really trade? Can you really do this for a living? And having that kind of support from somebody else who's seen you grow over the months and years is truly incredible. So yeah, I would say that's really important, to have somebody, be it your partner, be it your spouse or your family, to have that confidence in you that, okay, you've come so far, this is a hiccup, you'll get over it, and just focus on the right things. So yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to sizing for a second, when you were deciding what to size up on, rather than taking maybe your normal share or trade size, were you being extremely selective about the types of setups or the stocks themselves? What type of, potential trade was the ones that you knew you had to, I guess, as the metaphor goes, swing the bat hard and really go after with size? Can you talk a little bit about, during that scaling up process, what exactly was it that was most interesting to you to put big risk on?
Yeah, I think in 2021, around the time, where we had the whole GME AMC saga. So to one question, yeah, definitely sizing more on the trades that work for you. That means you need to review, you need to journal your trades, you need to look back. What are your biggest winners? What was that setup? So I definitely size more onto that. So having that selective approach would be beneficial. And I was more comfortable in some of those setups. So the trade that I just shared about, the opening drive range. And similarly, I've done in NVIDIA and SMCI. And those are the trades that I like to grow that, or push that size slowly, where eventually back then it would mean maybe more option contracts, but now it's more like taking more share size and equity. And then again, at the same point, you want to maintain that sizing a little bit longer based on your style, and then only grow once you're comfortable for that next level. Otherwise, you will start hitting really big losses, and that might deter your confidence.
Okay, thank you. And about consistency, which seems like something that is really important for you, just based on your equity curve. What sort of perspective do you have on consistency and the importance of consistency, whether that's, on a daily P&L or a weekly and or an annual? What's your sort of approach to that?
So I believe that, trading is more like a business, and it's not an income. So it's not a salary. It's not a fixed amount that you're going to get every month. So I always approach it with the mentality of take what the market gives. And if it's a slow period or it's a fast period, you'll know once you have that experience. So if it's a slow period, then, maybe just trade the first 1 or 2 hours. And if you get some good setups, great. If you don't push it in midday or end of day and then, lose back. Because I've had those days where I have a really good profit in the morning and then I give it all back by the end. And then it's super frustrating. And that's also key, knowing when to push versus when to conserve your profits and size down. And it comes with experience, and it comes with time and cycles. base hits are as important as home runs, because if you don't get those base hits, you won't be mentally ready for the home runs when the opportunity presents itself. So yeah, for my consistency, my style, it's definitely important the way I managed it. And yeah, I think that would be beneficial for anybody who is looking to, slowly grow the account.
And you mentioned previously journaling and trade reviews. Are those some tools that you implement that you think have been helpful to you to maintain your consistency? Or, if not, what do you think have been the most important ways for you to stay consistent?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think journaling and trade reviews are, if not the most important, one of the most important aspects. And I did that really consistently starting on, like in 2021, where at the end of the day, I would, export all my trades, publish it in Trader View, and review them. I would jot down notes for every single trade that I took. And on the weekends, I would look at my biggest losers and my biggest winners, like whatever that would be, because that's all relative to when the size grows. And I would look at, okay, what mistakes did I make? Was I emotional? Was it about sizing? Was it just a wrong trade idea? Was it just like FOMO? All of that was key to fine tune, how your style is and how to adapt slowly. So definitely, I would say journaling is one of the most important for me.
In terms of ensuring that you don't make the same mistakes twice or three times, which I think three times even is sort of forgivable in the world of trading.
It still happens.
Yeah. Even to the best traders out there. So I guess one of the questions I have is, what type of strategy do you use in order to make sure that you do your best to not repeat the same mistakes over and over and over? What does that look like for you? Because clearly you've been able to have success with consistency and that equity curve.
Yeah, I think one of the things I did early on was have like a mistake journal kind of thing, where I would, write down the biggest mistakes that I've been struggling with for this week or this month. And I also do like a daily report card where I have like a goal for the week and some reminders to myself, like, don't overtrade or don't trade during the midday or push less size during that. So all of these little tidbits have been picked up through the years and based on what I've seen, what I've experienced. So just that constant reinforcement and review of your trading helps, I would say. And other than that, it's also the discipline that needs to come in, right? You need to have that discipline to be able to trade consistently and successfully over the years.
In terms of your perspective on risk management, do you have any particular rules or hard policies that you put in place to ensure that your biggest loser trades, your biggest losing trades, are still smaller than your big winners? How do you approach that entire responsibility of risk management?
Exactly, yeah. So one of the biggest aspects is to have a max loss. And I picked it up back in, Jan in 2021, where I mentioned after having a really brutal day. And the way I calculated it was based off one of the podcasts on, I think, Chat with Traders, where it said it should be around, 2 to 3 average green days. So however your month is going, because again, it will vary based on the market. My max loss is usually around 2 to 3 average green days. And of course, it's around I have different brokers now. So each of them has a max loss. So I'm truly never at the risk of, losing my entire account or 50% of my account any day. Because once that max loss is in, there's very few rare occurrences where I actually can change it. Some brokers don't even allow you to change it, and some may be a little more flexible. But more often than not, I think 90% of times, if I hit a max loss and I change it, I would hit the next max loss. So the signs are there. So if you're not doing well that day, don't push it. That's one of the key to kind of conserving your trading career, I'd say. Because you've had these crazy runners, right? You've had the KODK, TNON this month. You've had ATXG, all of these random small cap names which are super thin and manipulated, and you don't know how high they can go, really.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of your trading psychology or the sort of self-talk that keeps you out of potentially big losing trades or keeps you in trades that are working well, how do you think about some of the trading psychology or self-talk that a trader has to go through to get them through the day, get them through the month, and continue to trade over and over again? How do you think about trading psychology? How much do you think about it, or do you mostly just shrug it off?
No, I think it's very important. And early on, this helped as well. Having these, I read a lot of psychology books around trading, like you've had Trading in the Zone, The Disciplined Trader, The Reminiscence of a Stock Operator. All of these are really good. And I sometimes reread those books, 2-3 times along the years as my account grew. And yeah, I definitely think it's important because if you're not in the right mind frame, even if the market is giving you that opportunity, you won't be able to capitalize it fully. Or versus if you're in the wrong frame of mind and you're just adding to a loser without any backup plan, you would most likely stop out at the top and then see it come back. So having that stable mindset is really important in trading, especially when your emotions are high, and that's what the job requires. So yeah, I really think of it as, many people compare it to like a professional sports where you have to be on your A game every day, every time, because every day is completely new and you're not going to see anything which is 100% exact of what you've seen before. So it's truly, truly challenging, and which is one of the things that actually attracted me to trading before. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, is sort of the challenge of it one of the things that piqued your interest in the markets?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've always been a numbers guy. I like maths growing up, so I would love pattern solving and pattern recognition in general. So trading, yeah, that aspect definitely interests me, and that it's really intellectually challenging. And you've heard about the 90-95% failure rate, right, in day trading. If you look up anybody who Googles day trading, that's the first thing they'll see. So that definitely, that's one of the things that interested me and still does. I'm really excited to look towards, Mondays for the market.
Yeah, I think that's a great perspective to have. See this as a challenge and not necessarily like a make or break type of challenge, but an intellectual pursuit, a challenge. And on that related note, you have a full-time job and you're also trading. So how do you find the time to balance both?
That actually is a good story. I mean, it kind of started like a hobby trading because I'm on the West Coast, so the timing helps. Like the market opens here at 6:30 a.m. So I wake up around 5:30. Most of the earlier days, I used to just trade the first 1 hour, 2 hours, and then carry on with the full-time job, right? And that definitely helped. And then I would review end of day or weekends, and that flexibility helped. So also my full-time job is not, I have like a more flexible approach to it where I have more of independent work. So I was able to manage both.
Do you think that continuing to keep your full-time job offers you any benefits as a trader or sort of an edge to keeping that job?
Yeah, I think it does for sure, because one, you don't have to worry about a salary or an income stream every month, right? Like if I was trading full-time, just trading, it definitely puts on that additional bit of pressure, which with a full-time job, I think that alleviates it. It also helps with the risk mentality, like, the amount of money that you're able to risk, because you have some sort of savings and some sort of steady income coming in again. You also get, benefits and insurance and other things here, which are definitely important too. But I would say at the same time, there are some caveats because, as I mentioned before, like, trading is an emotional journey. So every day, any day could turn into like a roller coaster of emotions. And then after that, you need to still go back to work. So.
Absolutely. And on a related note, do you have any advice or considerations for those who are thinking about quitting to trade full time?
Yeah, I think one definitely would be to have enough savings to do so, at least 1 to 2 years of your expenses saved before making that jump. Have also like a backup plan in case trading doesn't work, the market slows down, or your setups don't work anymore. So can you go back to the job market? And then have an expectation of a business. Again, it's not going to be a same number of amount or money every month. It's going to vary based on market. Some years might be slow versus some years are just exponential. So having that expectation also would help.
I think that's great advice. Thank you so much. And Yash, if it's okay with you, could we go through a lightning round set of questions? Pretty quick questions, pretty quick answers?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. My first question is, what would you consider to be your greatest strength as a trader?
I think I'm pretty good at tape reading and the level 2, like seeing the time and sales, especially when it comes to small caps and those parabolic squeezes. I'm able to kind of get in, get out based on the tape. And the second would be that I'm able to trade large caps as well as small caps. So especially when times are slow in small caps, having that arsenal of large cap trading also helps. Because I know a lot of people who are just into small caps, which is also great, but I felt like it's good to expand your breadth and take more approaches or opportunities. Yeah.
What's the best piece of trading advice you've ever received or heard?
I think so. It'll be one of these quotes that I read from a book. It says, anything can happen and nothing should happen. And if I look back at most of my losers, it's when I've broken one of these rules. So if you think about it, it's a pretty simple statement, but truly powerful.
Do you believe there are any misperceptions that exist about trading?
Yeah, I think often people equate trading or day trading especially to, gambling, but they don't, they look at risk very negatively, which I think is wrong. And they don't have a realistic idea of how much potential trading can be.
Do you tend to use mental stops or hard stops, or it just depends?
I think it's mostly mental stops at this point, but I also see the value of hard stops, and I'm slowly trying to gravitate to that.
What has been your most memorable or favorite moment of your trading career so far?
I think it would be the whole GME saga, the day in 2021 when it fell from, I think, 350 to 150. That day was pretty incredible. And it's also the month where AMC went from, I think, 15 to like 65. And that was just great. I was trading AMC every day that month, I think. So
are there any technical indicators on your charts that you use to either decide where you're going to enter or exit a position?
Not really. I think the only indicator that I use is VWAP, which is the volume weighted average price. I also use the levels like a pre-market high and pre-market low, but that's about it.
Are there any areas of your trading that you're currently working to improve on?
Yeah, I think I'm still working on improving my size and hold time, especially with small caps. I think with large caps, I've gotten that fine-tuned, but with small caps, I'm definitely looking to push more size. Yeah.
Are there any activities that you go through away from the desk that you believe are helpful to you as a trader once you get back to the desk to trade?
Yeah, so we have a dog. We take him out for, parks and hikes and trails. That definitely helps. Me and my wife, we both love to travel as well. So we've done a lot of trips in the last 2-3 years, which also helps you reset, between like these really busy weeks and months of trading. Having that 1 week off is great. And I also play badminton, so I have that social circle on the weekends. So that's good. But also, fitness is important.
For anybody listening who would love to learn more about you, the way you trade, or possibly even contact you, how can they do so?
Yeah, for sure. Reach out to me on Twitter. It's under Simple Day Trader. And yeah, I'm glad to have shared my journey and hope it helps and inspires somebody.
Yash, I absolutely believe that it will. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share your journey.
Yeah, for sure. That was great.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of The Trader's Journey. We have additional episodes we believe you might also like, so don't forget to subscribe. You'll be notified of upcoming episodes the moment they're published. Thanks for tuning in.